news coming in from New Zealand, where in a shocking move, New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has announced that she will step down. Ardern has said that she will not contest this year's general elections, which are scheduled for October. And fighting back her tears, the New Zealand Prime Minister said that her term and the country as a leader will conclude no later than 7th of February. Let's take a listen.
I'm entering now my 6th year in office, and for each of these years I have given my absolute all. I believe that leading a country is the most privileged job anyone could ever have, but also one of the more challenging. You cannot and should not do it unless you have a full tank, plus a bit in reserve for those unexpected challenges. This summer I had hoped to find a way to prepare not just for another year, but another term, because that is what this year requires. I have not been able to do that. And so today I'm announcing that I will not be seeking re-election, and that my term as Prime Minister will conclude no later than the 7th of February.
Jacinda Ardern has been one of the trailblazers in world politics. The 42-year-old made history when she became the youngest female head of a government in the world to be elected as a Prime Minister in 2017. She was 37 at that time. And not just that, she once again scripted history by becoming the first female world leader to bring her baby to the United Nations General Assembly in New York. And this was back in 2018. So one may wonder about her surprising announcement to resign. She says she no longer has the energy to do justice to the job. It is that simple. Let's take a listen.
But I'm not leaving because it was hard. Had that been the case, I probably would have departed 2 months into the job. I am leaving because with such a privileged role comes responsibility. The responsibility to know when you are the right person to lead and also when you are not. I know what this job takes, and I know that I no longer have enough in the tank to do it justice. It's that simple.
And there are some political reactions coming in on it as well. Let's take a listen.
We're extremely proud of what Jacinda's done for New Zealand and what, as a party, we've been able to achieve, and also a sense that we want to carry on as well.
I want to acknowledge and to thank the Prime Minister for her service to our country. I do want to say that I respect her for taking on what is a difficult and demanding job, and that she's obviously given it her all. And so I think when I reflect, I think that the way that she led New Zealand through those Christchurch terror attacks, and the way that we all felt proud about the response from the country and from her as our leader, and the way that she has always been a good ambassador for us on the global stage, are things that will be really important in her legacy. And I wish nothing but her and her family all the very best for the future.
Let's also listen in to how the New Zealand citizens are reacting to the surprise resignation announcement by Jacinda Ardern.
Well, I don't think she was doing very well in the polls anyway, so, it's a good time for her to step down.
Yeah, it is a surprise. I think she's looked after the country over some pretty difficult times, so, kind of wish her all the best for the future. I think she's done an amazing job with the situation she's been put in.
Well, that is where the reactions are coming in of several citizens who have decided to come up with their reactions, because this was a shock announcement by the New Zealand's Prime Minister. Now remember, she is somebody who started off really early as the Prime Minister at the age of 37. But Ardern had said that the next general elections, which will be held in October, she has got no intentions to even contest that for a re-election. But she maintains it that she is not leaving because she is not ready for the next election, but because she believes that the Labour Party is still going to go ahead and win it, but there are other priorities for her, and she just doesn't have the energy to continue for the position that she was holding. Well, she also goes on to say that I am human. We give as much as we can and for as long as we can, and then it's a time, and for me, it's time. She says that I am leaving because with such a privileged job comes a big responsibility, and the responsibility to know when you are the right person to lead and also when you are not. Well, that is what Jacinda Ardern has said in her parting note when she made that formal announcement. And right now I am joined by a guest from New Zealand, Chris Lynch, who is a journalist from New Zealand. Chris Lynch is joining us here at Mirror Now. A very good afternoon, Mr. Lynch. Appreciate you joining us here at Mirror Now. But this was an absolutely shocking announcement that came from your Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern. Now, what were the compulsions because of which she decided to take a decision like this? Because she had an entire career ahead of her. She could have perhaps done so well for her, but she decided to choose her priority as far as giving time to her family or her child is concerned. She makes it very clear that it is not because she is not capable of continuing as the Prime Minister of New Zealand, but it is because she feels that what it requires, what it entails, she may not be able to do justice to that position. How are people in New Zealand looking at it, and what precedent does it set for world politics?
It's nice to see you. Well, I think there was absolute shock among many New Zealand citizens when the news came in this afternoon, just after 1 p.m. New Zealand time. But I also think there was a sense that this may have been happening. There were rumours swirling around in Wellington at the Government House buildings with suggestions she may indeed step down. But those rumours, of course, turned out to be true today. Shocking, yes. Surprising on some respects, no. The reason being, what they say on politics, a year in politics is a lifetime, a long time rather, and that could be said for Jacinda Ardern. Although she was incredibly popular, there's absolutely no doubt about that. She was popular at the start of her tenure, her administration. She was popular at the start of the global pandemic, but about last year, things started to take a turn for the worst, and the mantra that she would say about being kind to other people, that started to wash off not the best with New Zealanders, but also some of her policies became can be described as quite divisive. For example, co-governance, which, to give your viewers some understanding, the co-governance of this country is when you have the Indigenous people of New Zealand, the Māori, have their own set of rules and regulations and governance, as well alongside essentially the New Zealand Parliament in some respects. So now we're looking at a hospital system that has a hospital system not just placed for New Zealanders, but also a system that's set up for Māori as well. So in some respects, although Māori are represented in all the wrong statistics here in New Zealand, so one could say that the government is trying to be well-intended with trying to get these policies across the line. But many New Zealanders, I feel, believe that it's just been too divisive. Other matters, of course, is three waters when it comes to wastewater, fresh water in New Zealand. Those are governed by local councils, local cities across New Zealand, but the government wanted to take away that local responsibility, that local democracy, and place it in the capital of Wellington. So once again, there was a sense of communities losing control. And I think that played a part in the dramatic decline in her popularity across New Zealand. And that's why we've seen polling, external polling, but also internal polling from the Labour Party suggesting her popularity was in fact plummeting quite rapidly. Having said that, the opposition party leader, Christopher Luxon, it's by no means is it a foregone conclusion that he will be the next Prime Minister of New Zealand, because as I said before, a week in politics is a long time. What about a year in politics?
Absolutely, Mr. Lynch. Thank you for joining us with all those valued inputs. But I will have to ask you, is it only because that the Labour Party government wasn't really receiving that sort of popularity? Because they were definitely at the receiving end for many of their policies, as you listed it out. But when it comes to prioritizing what exactly she wants, is that being lauded as a move? Is that a brave move on her part to hang her boot at this juncture in politics, where a lot could lie ahead of her in a promising career? And what example does it set for many other such working women politicians?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, there's no doubt about it that she has paved the way for many New Zealand women, as you rightly pointed out. She was one of the first politicians in the world to take her baby to the United Nations, and she was largely applauded for that. But I think you're right. There has been times in New Zealand where I think we have felt proud that we've had a young female Prime Minister. Of course, it's not our first. We had Jenny Shipley before that, and of course, Helen Clark, who ran a very important United Nations program for many years. So there has been some success stories before that. But you're right, she has been recognised as being not just a global leader, but a fantastic orator, a fantastic communicator. And no doubt those skills will come in handy when she goes for the next job, which could be, I mean, look, there's been lots of discussions in New Zealand of what she could do, an ambassadorship perhaps in Washington, but I think all eyes are on the United Nations. And I think she still wants to leave with a sense of dignity and go out now, not on a high so much, but knowing that she's not going to be known as the Prime Minister that lost an election. So she's going out as a Prime Minister that can maintain that sense of pride, I think, and respect, might I add, internationally. And so that has been a win for her. And there has been, I think, a win for many women across the globe who, look, to be honest, they do look up to her. But it's not the international audience that, at the end of the day, that she really should have been caring about. It really should be, of course, the domestic audience here at home. And unfortunately, for better or worse, I think it's fair to say that her time is up. You only need to look at the New Zealand Herald website late this afternoon. I think they had about 50,000 votes on whether or not it was time for her to resign. 80% said they were glad and thought she had made the right decision.
Well, Chris Lynch joining us here at Mirror Now from New Zealand. He's a journalist and getting us the perspective from New Zealand. But what lies ahead for New Zealand, that is only what time would say. But as of now, Jacinda Ardern has decided to hang her boots and prioritize her home, her hearth, her family over and beyond her political ambition.
Yeah, she most certainly has. And look, I mean, you've got to hand it to her in some respects that she has dealt with some of the worst tragedies, whether they've been natural disasters in New Zealand or, in fact, sadly, man-made disasters. And I think she will be remembered, particularly in my home city where I'm broadcasting from this morning here in Christchurch, New Zealand. We had the horrific mosque terror attacks on March the 15th, 2019. I mean, that really set the tone for what kind of Prime Minister initially we were going to get, one that was full of hope, strength, and great empathy. And once again, she was promoted as that.
Appreciate you joining us here, Chris Lynch. Thank you very much. Chris Lynch joining us here from New Zealand and giving us a perspective about what lies ahead for his country as Jacinda Ardern hangs a boot as the Prime Minister of New Zealand.